Patch 3.5 is here, and with it comes two rerun banners featuring newly buffed characters. In the first phase, we're getting the rerun of everyone's favorite dot queen, Kafka. In today's video, we're going to break down everything that's changed in her kit, explore the best relics, ornaments, and light cones for this upgraded version, and go over the best team comps to maximize her full potential. Let's dive in. Kafka joins a few other characters who Hoyo have decided needed to be buffed in order to stand up to the recent power creep that characters such as Finon and Castrovis have caused in the meta, making bosses' health extremely higher than they used to be. So, how exactly did Kafka change, and is she really that much better? Looking at Kafka, let's first discuss her skill. Previously, the skill dealt damage to a single target while in the process damaging adjacent enemies, but for triggering dot, the skill would only activate the dot to the primary target, and if those adjacent enemies had dot as well, they would not be activated. Now, the dot will be activated, and the best part is that instead of just the primary target dot triggering, the adjacent enemy's dot will trigger now as well, as long as they have a dot debuff on them. Moving over to her ultimate, previously it stated that when enemies are hit, they become inflicted with the shock debuff and only take damage from the shock state. Now, once an enemy is hit with the ultimate, they are still inflicted with the shock debuff, but instead of just receiving damage from the shock state, they will immediately take damage from all dot debuffs they are currently inflicted with. Now, let's discuss the talent. Kafka used to only launch a follow-up attack when a teammate used a basic attack, and doing so, she would inflict dot onto the enemy, with this effect only being triggered once per turn. Now, whenever an enemy uses any attack, could be a skill, ultimate, or even basic, Kafka will launch a follow-up to the primary target, and instead of only activating once, this action can be performed twice per turn. Jumping over to traces, for her tortured trace, before, when Kafka used her ultimate, she would trigger all applied dot debuffs on the enemies instead of just the shock debuff. But since she does that with her skill now, the new description of the trace states that when an ally's effective hit rate is 75% or higher, Kafka will increase that target ally's attack by 100%. This is pretty dang good when we get over to the team building aspect. For the final trace, Thorns, the original description stated that when an enemy isn't shocked by the ultimate, the follow-up attack damage would be increased by 30%. Now, when the ultimate is used, the triggerable count of the follow-up is increased by 1. And when the follow-up is performed, all dots currently on the target will immediately produce damage equal to 80% of the original damage. The final piece of her kit I want to talk about is her E2, as this is arguably the biggest and most impactful part of her kit adjustment. While the wording is the same, the damage percentage is increased. While Kafka is present on the field, instead of dot dealt by all allies doing 25% more damage, the damage dealt by dot will be 33% more damage. While this may seem like a small increase, you need to keep in mind with team builds that Kafka will be a part of dot effects constantly and constantly be applied. So this is actually a massive increase. Now that we understand Kafka's new role on her team and what exactly she does with the adjustments, how exactly do you want to build her and adjust your build for her if you already have her? Since Kafka doesn't have a problem applying her own shock debuff, and especially if you have her best in slot partner, Hysolins, Kafka doesn't really need a lot of effective hit rate. You really just need to get to that 75% threshold, but the main stat you want to prioritize would be speed, as a fast Kafka is the best Kafka. To accomplish this, you want to run a mix and match variations of speed sets in order to benefit from the 2-piece speed bonus, or if you can, run a 4-piece set of the Eagles. This set will benefit her not necessarily with the wind damage bonus, but from the juicy advanced forward ability after using her ultimate so that you can trigger all the dots on the enemies as much as possible. For the ornaments, two sets really stand out more so compared to the others. The first being the Lushaka set, which will increase Kafka's energy regenerate by 5%, which in and itself is great, but if the wearer isn't the first in the lineup, you will increase the first character's attack by 12%. Again, you will understand this once we get to the team building section. The other set that really stands out is a Reverie set, which will not only increase attack by 12%, but if the attack is higher than 2,400 or 3,600, the dot damage will increase by 12% up to 24%. So on top of Kafka triggering all the dot on the enemy, this pairs perfectly, dishing out more damage. Looking at her light cone options, this is a massive change compared to when she first came out. Upon release, she was limited on light cones, as for the most part, what she wanted to do was limited, and of course, her best was her sig. But with more time having passed and some decent options now having come out, you will find that I don't think her sig is the best in slot anymore. Her best option, you want to look at Cypher's Light Cone, as it provides a significant speed boost, and whenever the wearer attacks, you have a 120% base chance to inflict the enemy with Bamboozle, which will cause the enemy defense to decrease, and if you manage to get the wearer above 170 speed, you can inflict the Thief State, which lowers the enemy defense as well. Another great option would be those many springs, as after using a basic, skill, or ultimate, you have a 60% chance to inflict the enemy with the unarmed state, which causes the enemy to receive more damage. And if the wearer attacking the enemy inflicted with the dot state, then the unarmored state is then upgraded to the cornered state, which will further increase damage received by the enemy. For some 4-star options, you can run the Holiday Escapade to increase damage taken by enemies, or Good Night Sleep Well Light Cone, as this also increases damage received by the enemy. Now for the part I have been teasing multiple times throughout the video. As I've previously mentioned, Kafka's best teammate is now Hysolins instead of Black Swan, and the reasoning for this is because Kafka enables Hysolins better than anyone else, as not only does she trigger all the dot that Hysolins will be putting on the enemies, but because Kafka can increase her attack, which is the main stat that Hysolins wants, along with running an ornament set that can further increase that attack. You can run Black Swan as a third dot teammate as well if you want that ideal core of Hysolins in Kafka. Other options include Cypher or Zhao Q to decrease enemy defense, allowing more damage dealt by dot debuffs. In terms of healing, you honestly can run any option, though I have to say the best and easiest option could be Huahua, as not only she provides AoE healing, but being able to regenerate allies' ultimate gauge is huge for Kafka, which will further enable her to deal more damage but further trigger all the dot debuffs on the enemies. In conclusion, Kafka has gotten a lot better with these reworks to her kit. From a glance, it might not seem like much, as she isn't a pure damage character that we have come accustomed to with the recent releases. But when it comes to overall team options and how she functions in that team, Kafka stands out perfectly as a key to bring back the dot meta that so many people, myself included, fell in love with upon release. So, let me know what you think about Kafka and whether or not you are either pulling for her for your first time or trying to get that E2. I'll see you all next time.